We're tracking Tropical Storm Fernand in the open Atlantic with a disturbance east of the windwards with development chances going into next week. Aaron has since died out. He is no longer with us. He was succumbed to his own evil and the monster that he became. The rumbling has since ceased, and for now, the tropics are not as volatile. This is the last time I'm going to make this joke. Hey there, my name is Eric. If you're new here, I am an aspiring meteorologist, storm chaser, currently in college working towards my atmospheric science degree. Before we dive in, I just would like to say if you're interested in weather analysis content and would like a good source of analysis of local and tropical weather as well as pretty interesting storm chasing videos, you should consider subscribing. Also, if you could leave a like on this video if you enjoy it, found it helpful, I would be very grateful. Today is August 24th, 2025, and today we're going to be analyzing the tropics as we approach the peak of hurricane season. We've actually just entered what is considered the peak of hurricane season, but the very peak of it is the very, very top of what is statistically the most active part of the season, that mountain, I guess you can see in the graph they usually show, is we have yet to reach that. So we're going to be looking at likely more as the weeks go on, but we're probably going to be expecting a relatively quiet rest of August, unless the disturbance approaching the windwards decides to kick up, but it looks like it probably won't get much of a chance to become much of anything formidable, but we will talk about that more in the impacts that will take place regardless of that. Taking a look at Fernand, you can see it is a pretty organized tropical storm. There's some banding structures happening in here, and there's definitely a pretty decent amount of convection. There is room for short-term development, but as it treks further, it will encounter cooler ocean surface temperatures as well as more shear, and is expected to become extratropical by midweek, which will be about Wednesday, August, what is that? That's 3 days, August 27th. It will become extratropical as it starts interacting with those mid-latitude troughs, and it will just be picked up by those, just like Aaron was, as usually is the fate of most of these systems. It is passing well east of Bermuda, and there are no expected threats to Bermuda or the U.S. This is most likely just going to be entirely a fish storm. You can see this at the forecast cone. Not really any concern to land. I think, if anything, the most likely effects on land are to Canada, but really I wouldn't even expect much of anything there. It's going to be pretty well out to sea. Looking at the GFS here, you can see it's pretty much in agreement on just staying north to northeast, and like I said, if any land impact is to be concerned, it would be up there in Canada, but I think by that point it won't be too powerful of a system, but it's just, I would recommend keeping an eye on it just in case. About that point it will be transitioning to extratropical still. Even if it isn't tropical, that's not a reason to let your guard down, but I would still keep an eye on it just in case. Most likely not a threat to land. Certainly not to the US or Bermuda. Now we're going to take a look at the disturbance east of the windwards. We have some showers and storms moving west at 20 to 25 miles per hour. Reconnaissance is currently investigating, and as it moves westward, it has a 40% chance of development over the next 7 days. However, it is supposed to move into unfavorable environment. Regardless of development, it is expected to bring gusty winds and heavy rain into the windward and leeward islands going into Monday. But as I said, as it goes further into the Caribbean, it will encounter less conducive environment, which keeps its chances of becoming a tropical storm lower. Like I said, 40% chance of developing into a depression as it moves west. This was among those two systems that we were watching. I talked about in my last analysis video. Fernand is now one of them, and this is that other one. So looking at the GFS, precip, and MSLP model run, you can see Fernand continues its trek northward, north to northeastward, but it intensifies briefly, but quickly succumb to factors that cause it to weaken. And disturbance AL99 moves into the Caribbean past the islands with convection, but seems to fizzle out pretty quickly. Looking at the shear here, you can see Fernand, it's pretty embedded with a subtropical flow and pretty much fizzles out. And there is some shear that remains in the Caribbean that keeps AL99 from doing much of anything. I mean, this is before it can even develop into a notable system. So, all right, now looking at the upper dynamics, you can see Fernand here is this little small blob, blue blob here amidst all the higher pressure, and it continues moving up and fizzles out pretty quickly, and you're not really seeing much going on in the Caribbean either. And currently we are seeing a trough moving into the northeast United States, and that is actually bringing in cooler air, and that will actually persist going into a bit into September. Actually, it'll weaken actually as it goes into September, but it will bring relatively cooler temperatures. It'll definitely be relief, but as I said in the last video, where I'm from, we're not really going to see much of that, unfortunately, and I'm really sick of the heat. However, I did walk outside a few days ago, and I kind of noted humidity was down, and it was just a little bit cooler, and I was like, even without knowing specifically what it is, it's like there's a sort of instinct you can tell when fall is coming. It's just like ingrained in us, I guess. It's kind of like when you can smell when it's about to rain. You can just feel it. You can't really tell exactly what it is. But I noticed that, and there's always like a first time I notice that as we get into mid to late August, and it brings me joy, to say the least. I'm actually wearing this wintry-esque shirt to express my eagerness for winter to show up, even though here in Texas that doesn't really happen until like mid-December. But I mean, winter doesn't start until mid-December technically. However, in Texas it really doesn't start to feel like winter until then, and even then January is only month that's consistently that cold. We are going to move on looking at moisture content, relative humidity, and you can see there's AL99. Here's Fernand. This is present time, and going forward, you can see it looks like AL99 is going to be surrounded mostly by dry air, and even the area that has somewhat moist air, it's going to contain some relatively drier air that gets entrapped in there. Fernand just fizzles out pretty quickly, and actually on the northern side of the system, it's expected that it will get contaminated by dry air, and you can see it's like just completely beaten out entirely by the time it makes up there to the mid-latitudes. So the Caribbean, down the line as AL99 moves further west, seemingly looking back and forth between being not necessarily super favorable, but it's kind of inconsistent. I feel like this is one of those cases where it's just sort of tricky to be certain about. The interesting thing is that models have been showing this wave not performing well, even in the area that it's currently at. So the area it's currently at, it was expected not to be even at the strength that it's at now, and it's a tropical wave only. As I said, as it moves into the Caribbean, there's going to be relatively decent amount of wind shear. There's some wind shear coming down from the westerlies that will tilt any system that attempts to develop. And then when it comes to the moisture, it does try to create its own environment, but it's sandwiched between still a lot of dry air that kind of makes its way into there. And then something else I want to note is that the GFS is picking up on something that comes from the Yucatan further down the line to less reliable hours, less reliable forecast hours that could correlate with this system, but it doesn't. I don't know that that would be the exact same system. It's just really weird because it goes back and forth between being favorable and not favorable with these different factors. And it's at this point, I think if we start to see past Wednesday more favorable conditions presently in the Caribbean, which is not currently expected, just based on synopses, then I'll probably flag it. But for now, I'll probably, my main point about it is probably just keep an eye on it, but we're probably not going to see something significant out of this. It's just kind of weird. Let's just keep an eye on it, essentially, is what I want to say about it. I will update on it as time goes on. Oh my gosh, my foot fell asleep. And it's like really asleep. Man, I shouldn't have sat on it like that. I gotta stop doing that. I love having ADHD so much. You can tell I'm very professional. So the takeaways for the tropics for this is Fernand stays well north. Not really a concern. AL99 disturbance. People in the Caribbean islands, specifically the Windward and Leeward Islands, really should just keep an eye out on conditions like flooding from heavy rain and gusty winds. That system will move over going into the week, and we'll just monitor it for potential development. So for the U.S. mainland, there are no tropical threats right now. As I said, Fernand is not a concern there at all. But just a reminder for the people in the U.S., always a good idea to keep an eye on the tropics. And like I said, have your hurricane plan made already, especially as we enter the peak hurricane season. If you would like more semi-daily updates to the hurricane season, you should consider subscribing, because I will be providing those a few times a week. And it's always good to have a good source of information for keeping an eye on the weather. So something I would like to start doing is providing a three-day outlook for United States weather. Something I'll probably have dedicated videos for, but I'll go ahead and add this to this video. We're going to look at Monday, August 25th through Wednesday, August 27th. So there is a pronounced upper level trough that exists in the eastern U.S. and Canada, and while a ridge holds over the Rockies, as you can see, this cold front that is being pushed by the trough is directly associated with the jet stream, which is going to move in going into Monday. So everything you're seeing here is wind shear in the upper levels, while the previous map I showed you here is surface dynamics. And this whole setup is going to bring strong to severe storms in eastern Colorado into western Oklahoma. You have isolated hail and wind threats possible. Residual instability may remain over New England, Texas, and even Florida, but the risk there for severe weather is definitely lower. In places like central and northern Georgia, there are some rainstorms expected as the front moves forward, but chances there of anything marginal are not great. Nothing too hazardous. As the surface front moves further southeast, you can expect some rainstorms along the southern plains, and you can see that is actually highlighted here. We'll go to the Storm Prediction Center, and everything in green, you could probably expect scattered rainstorms on Tuesday, but high pressure system dominates most of the continental U.S. and will stabilize most regions. Going into Wednesday, models predict a continued southeastward movement of the trough with a building ridge in the west. This sets the stage for possible scattered rainstorms across the northeast and central plains. But again, most of the conditions are going to be pretty stable, as everything is dominated by a high pressure system on the surface. And again, because of that upper level trough, things will still remain in terms of temperature below average over the East Coast as well as the central U.S. These are the expected daily high temperatures This is today, as of Sunday. And as you can see, as we go into the week on Monday, those cooler temperatures start to dip into the eastern United States, and it gets a little bit cooler. And it'll feel pretty pleasant for a lot of people in the Central Plains and eastern U.S., as well as the Midwest. This will pretty much be our first round of somewhat fall-like weather, and that trend just continues going forward. So bottom line, Monday brings thunderstorm chances in the high plains up a bit, but elsewhere weather remains pretty stable, and that pattern will persist going into Wednesday. So thus more within the next 3 days, you can expect no severe weather outbreaks. But if you stay tuned, you can catch up on my updates as we go later into the week. I'll be starting that on Wednesday, Thursday. And then I will also keep you updated on the tropics as that develops. That concludes today's analysis for August 24th. Again, if you like this kind of content, consider subscribing. And if you found this video helpful, please leave a like. I'd be very grateful for that. Remember to drink water. Go pet your cat. I'm actually going to do that right now. He's on top of my PC. Good boy. What a good pup. I don't know. Go for a walk. I know it's like still really hot outside. But just go for a walk. The weather's going to get better. It's good for you. Take care. Stay safe out there. I'll see you in the next one. Goober. He's not having it. Okay, I'm sorry. No, I'm good. Okay. Go down to me. Yeah. If you see storms, then it'll also be that.